What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So Tokyo Game Show was over the weekend, and while there wasn't anything that was massive, crazy, nothing like that there, we did have a big-time look at Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, the new Zelda game coming out in less than 2 months now, and it was pretty impressive. We're going to talk about that today. A bunch of gameplay was shown, some new details, and some refresher on some old details coming up towards launch. Also, Starfield, still a pretty big mystery to a lot of us. We expect a big open world style game from Bethesda, similar to Elder Scrolls, but taking place in space with exploration through that. But we may have our first look at it, as an image has allegedly leaked online. We'll talk about that. Also, Final Fantasy 16 might be going mature rated, and that could be big time for the franchise. As always, guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below. And we're gonna start today with Kirby Fighters 2. Now, we talked about this, of course, last week, where Nintendo just kind of dropped it after they accidentally leaked it on their own website. Well, people started going through the files and data mined it, and they found some interesting things. For example, here is a tweet that was put out that says, "How left code for sample programs," or something related in Kirby Fighters 2's default.bin. In it is a namespace called Kirby 3D. There's things for Kirby, Blade Knight, Sword, and Waddle Dees. A lot of these have actual codes. Going on to say, some more info, code plus organization is up to standards of the recent mainline games. This is alongside a bunch of experimental mint test projects, such as a Kirby-based template and other random things, completely different than Blowout Blast code in every way. And this is leading people to believe that there could be some other Kirby game coming up, and it could be 3D? Could we have like a full 3D Kirby game? Look, I think most people believe that there is something else from HAL coming. If you think this is their big project, that's probably not correct, all right? They're most likely going to have another bigger Kirby game coming, I'm gonna say relatively soon. I think it could be next year that we get our first look at it, and I'm mostly curious if it's another 2D Kirby game like we've had on the Switch now a couple years ago, or if they're gonna do something like try a 3D Kirby game on the Switch, something completely different from what they did previously. So that's something to keep an eye on. HAL certainly has another game coming. Is it gonna be some crazy Kirby game? We'll see. Also, if you had gotten a pre-order in for the Xbox Series X or even the PS5 at this point on Amazon, you might wanna check your email right now, because Wario64 tweeted this out, pointing a few things out for emails, saying Amazon sent an email giving advance warning that Xbox Series X pre-orders may not arrive on launch day due to high demand. This was a similar email that went out for the PlayStation 5, specifically that digital edition for the PS5. That along with the Xbox Series S seem to be more scarce than the other systems, the more expensive ones that will take a disc, which is kind of strange because I figured they might want to put those out there, although I think they're losing more money, so maybe that's why. However, I do believe that the launch day for these systems is going to be absolute chaos, mayhem. It's going to be wild stuff. First off, of course, retail stores are going to have lines out the door for these things. People are going to be rushing the doors looking for these systems. And I have a feeling most of these places will get like 5 or 6 of each or something, right? And that'll be fun. But these online orders, I'm sure, will be all over the place, and you won't know if you're getting it day one. So you want to check your email, keep an eye on it, because it sounds like Amazon was sending these out in waves, and you might think you're good and that you're getting it on release day, and then all of a sudden, like a week before, they'll hit you with that, oh, it might not be there on release day. So just keep that in mind. Oh, and while we're on the topic of the Xbox Series X, just to make sure I was jealous enough, Jeff Grubb posted this picture on Twitter. Yes, that is him holding an Xbox Series X. It looks like press at different websites had Xbox Series X systems sent to them. I assume they're like pre-production or something, because it's pretty early to get those. This probably would have been something that we would have seen at E3, right? Where they would have gone behind closed doors and tried these out and been able to capture footage. All of this seems they decided to just send the systems out. Digital Foundry also posted a video on Twitter showing them with the memory card, the little 1 terabyte, $220 memory card, plugging it in. I'm curious what games they're testing on. Are they just testing like current Xbox One games? I mean, I guess. What Series X game is even out right now, right? We're still waiting for things like Assassin's Creed, Yakuza Like a Dragon, Cyberpunk, Watch Dogs, games that are at least have the Series X in mind. But I guess backwards compatibility is still a big thing for us to find out about. So look forward, I'm sure, this week for some sort of preview to start rolling out from different press outlets and even on YouTube. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Tokyo Game Show, and specifically Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, coming out towards the end of November. And from what they showed, at Tokyo Game Show. This is Koei Tecmo. They show up, right? They sit down at their desk and they go, let's just play Age of Calamity right now. And they did. They gave us a good look at the game. I think it was like 10 or 15 minutes of them just playing it in front of everyone. It was really cool to see this because it of course, gave us our first look, but it really showed us how this game was going to play. And I have to say, it looks good. It looks really good. They also put out this trailer here, which is the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity Champions Unite, going through all the different champions with some very good voice acting. It looks like, of course, as we would expect, story is going to be a main focus here, which is great because Breath of the Wild was a great game to explore and kind of make your own adventure, but you also were kind of tasked to seek out parts of the story. This looks like it's going to be something that runs you through the entire, the Calamity War and all this. It's going to be, I think, a lot of fun, especially if you are someone deep into the Zelda lore, especially with Breath of the Wild. This is going to be an absolute dream to play through. Visually, it looks great, and to think that it'll also have co-op is even better, and they started showing off some characters, which included young Impa. In fact, she'll be playable in the game, which is great. And that's the biggest thing about something like Hyrule Warriors, of course, is that they have a ton of playable characters, which started getting me thinking even about Age of Calamity, all the different characters they'll have us play with the different weapons. They even showed kind of a bonus here. If you have Breath of the Wild save data on your Switch, you can see they tweeted this out saying, if you have save data for Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on your Nintendo Switch, you'll receive the bonus training sword weapon for Link in Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. First of all, anyone who buys this probably has save data on their Switch for Breath of the Wild, considering how well it's sold, but also this is the audience who would have picked up Breath of the Wild. So that's a fun bonus. Second, I wonder if this will break in like 3 swings, because like Link's 2 biggest weaknesses are like swords and everything built out of paper mache, and when it rains. Also, as a reminder, the amiibo for the 4 champions, of course, will be relaunching alongside Age of Calamity. That's on the 20th of November. Overall, it was a really good show, and they didn't even stop there. There's a full collector's edition. Check this out. This is on Amazon Japan. By the way, if you are not in Japan and you want to order this, you're going to have to go through there. That's probably your best bet to get it because they will ship outside of Japan. But even this looks absolutely insane. They are really going all out with this release, which, I mean, it's Zelda. It's the Calamity Wars. You have to do this, right? The big treasure box collector's edition. Just overall, Koei Tecmo really seems to have delivered. Now, we have to see the game when it comes out, we have to play it and all of this, but like from the previews, the fact that they just sat down and played and talked about it, and they're showing, I think, a lot of trust from Nintendo for them to work together with them to tell the story of the Calamity Wars, which is something they alluded to. So there's, I'm sure, a lot of liberties they could take with this story if they would like to, but the little snippets of the story that I've seen so far, and of course the voice acting, everything, it's coming together for us to see the different stories for all the different champions. We are, of course, know it's going to be a bad ending, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play through and see how all of this went down. It's exciting stuff. Looking forward to it towards the end of November. If you missed it, they have the full stream, I believe, up on Tokyo Game Show's channel. And then there's also, I'll leave a link in the sources, where you can check out about 10 or 11 minutes of just flat out gameplay. Really cool stuff. Next up, let's talk about the great mystery that is Starfield. Now, of course, Microsoft bought ZeniMax and Bethesda and all of this last week, and that was the big headlining news, right? Microsoft makes this massive purchase, and now they have all of Bethesda's IPs. That does include Starfield. However, an image started to make the rounds. It appears, from what I've seen, to have originated on 4chan, and then many people started to say, yeah, that is an image from Starfield. How did that get out there? And it seems to be an image from a build of from 2018, so it's a bit older, and I'm curious if, like, visually, of course, it'll change and all of this, but here we are. This is allegedly our first look at Starfield. Check it out here, and it looks pretty basic. I mean, they're in space, of course, on a planet, I guess, standing there. We have a look at the HUD. We do see, like, a stamina meter, health, of course, a little oxygen meter, it looks like, as well. Now, Starfield, like I said, is a mystery, but we kind of have a feeling what it's going to be like with Bethesda's track record and the Elder Scrolls, and I think that's one of the reasons it's very exciting. It's them trying to tackle a different setting, right, going into space with the idea of what they do with Elder Scrolls, which also concerns me, of course, about all the bugs and wild stuff that's probably going to take place in zero gravity at times. Like, we're having a hard time with Bethesda when they have gravity. Think about it without it, and like they're trying to make sure that like things don't go flying in the air or just fall through the floor, and the jankiness will be at a whole new level there. Now, while it does appear that this is an actual image of Starfield, keep in mind, this could have been in development. If it's from 2018, this could have been an early build of it, as I think a lot of people are assuming. So I wouldn't even go off of the visuals for this. The HUD could even change, but I think when we do eventually get Starfield unveiled to us, we'll be able to go back and take a look at this image, see how close it was, and even tell us if it was really, well, real in the first place. But I'm excited to finally get a look at Starfield. I feel like we're gonna see it next year. The big question will be, as everyone is asking right now, is this gonna be an Xbox and PC as a Game Pass, basically exclusive, and leave the PlayStation 5 out? You'll have to let me know what your thoughts on that down below, because that is a hotly contested topic right now, and I'm curious where everyone stands on it. Next up, let's talk about Tokyo Game Show's Game of the Year, because they did pick one during the show, and unless Evan ruined it in the sidebar here, I'll give you a second to take a guess at which game won Game of the Year for Tokyo Game Show. It was Animal Crossing. Yeah, check this out. They even had the full explanation as to why, and a lot of it has to do with kind of going beyond just being a video game and even a way for people to escape further than what we're used to with video games. Because we were forced to stay home due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a slow life experience in this game in which you can do everything freely became a comfort to people all over the world. Communication with close friends throughout the game and interaction with other people and events went beyond the bounds of a single game, and the game showed the power of entertainment from Japan, acquiring overwhelming support from many users of all ages, from children to senior citizens in general voting, and won both the award for excellence and the grand award. So yeah, I mean, if you look at Animal Crossing, as they say, it brings everyone of all ages together, and it was a good way for people to escape with what was going on at the time, which was everyone staying inside with the pandemic and COVID-19 going on. I mean, most of us saw Animal Crossing right at that time when everyone was trying to stay inside, of course, away from each other, and everyone looked at that and said, this is the perfect time for Animal Crossing, and it was. I mean, look at the sales on this game. Even in Japan, it's crushing everything around it, and now we're probably gonna see a number, I mean, maybe above 25 million already, just the overall sales from Nintendo. And kind of what their explanation is here, it makes sense. Yeah, I guess that would be Game of the Year. I'm curious if the Game Awards will view it in the same way as they did at Tokyo Game Show, but it's clear Animal Crossing brought a lot of people together this year when they couldn't be. In our last bit of news, let's talk about Final Fantasy 16. We, of course, had it unveiled to us on Sony's show because it was a Sony exclusive for the PlayStation 5, also going to the PC. If it's timed exclusive, we'll find out, but it sounds like at least for now, we can expect to have to get a PS5 to play it. But there are a few things we have to go over, which does include the visuals that they showed as well. However, something caught a lot of people off guard, myself included, and that was when they were showing the game. It seemed more violent than we would expect for a Final Fantasy game, with kind of blood being splattered all over the place, right, and some of the themes they were tackling, but check this out here. This was spotted. You see it on Twitter saying Final Fantasy 16 confirmed M-rated. That's huge. I will say it of course has the I guess the PEGI 18 rating there, but that is provisional. So they could maybe work within the bounds of teen rated or get down to what, PEGI 12 or PEGI 13 or something like that, 14, just to make sure they get teen rating, because once you go up to mature, you are kind of shrinking your overall customer base because they have to, of course, make sure they're above 17 to buy it at the register. But we have had Final Fantasy Type 0 go to mature rating, but it's not like a mainline numbered Final Fantasy. Also on top of that, people had questions specifically about the visuals that were shown there. And then as you can see on Twitter, this is from Miraculous from the Final Fantasy 14 stream, because keep in mind it's the same producer there. They already well aware about the comments about Final Fantasy 16's graphics. Graphics are obviously not finalized, still working on it. Wanted to show footage representing the actual game instead of the usual type of reveal that is not. That's CG. And that's something that people complain about a lot, but think about it this way. A lot of people complain about the Final Fantasy 16 visuals because they were like, well, this is supposed to be PlayStation 5 and next gen, but if they had shown a CG trailer, people would have been like, oh, you know what, they didn't show any gameplay, but it looks good, right? So they would kind of move on and say, we'll see it eventually. They just straight up showed us, hey, this is what we have right now. This is actual in-game visuals, and we're doing, well, in-engine, I guess, gameplay and all of this, right, to show off what you can expect it to look like, but that kind of backfired a bit with the comments online. I would prefer to see what the game looks like up front, though, and just say, oh, maybe it'll get better. It's better than going the opposite direction, right? Where we'll see downgrades happen going towards release date. I'd prefer to go the other way and be pleasantly surprised, but you know what? I trust the Final Fantasy 14 team there and to work on Final Fantasy 16. I'm excited for it. especially if it gets that mature rating. That's gonna be interesting to see a numbered Final Fantasy, but everything can change here. The visuals will probably get upgraded, and keep in mind, that rating is provisional. We'll see what happens as we get closer to launch day. I'm thinking next year. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Albert saying, Half-Life Alyx should be at least nominated to Game of the Year. It's like the Mario 64, Zelda Ocarina of Time of VR games. You know what? I would agree with you on that. I know people are like, oh, it's VR. You can't be nominated for Game of the Year because it's VR. It's still kind of niche and all this. You know what? I understand what you're saying there, because Game of the Year is something that will push the boundaries of a genre, right? It's supposed to be recognized for that. Half-Life Alyx appears to have done that for a lot of people that are really into it or have played it. I still have not myself played it. I need to. I really should. But that is something that makes a lot of sense, I think, for Game of the Year. The problem we're going to come down to is it has to be nominated by enough people to get there. And because VR is technically niche compared to other, mainstream games and all of this, it might not be nominated enough. But there will, of course, be, I'm sure, VR Game of the Year and all of this, because Jeff Keighley was backing that game pretty well. I'm sure it will at least make an appearance there. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys? Hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today. Well, there's Tokyo Game Show with Zelda, the new Zelda game, Age of Calamity. Looks awesome. Really excited to get that game in November and check it out. Or what about that Starfield image? Do you think it's real? Do you think they're going to surprise us with this game? Or do you think it's going to be Bethesda with a glitchy game in zero gravity? That could be a lot of fun. And then Animal Crossing, should it be Game of the Year? Does that explanation make sense to you for it to be there? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.